Hi, I'm Angified. I started Angified Presents.
We share the love of music.
It has been medicine and therapy. Nothing else worked.
It has saved many of us. With mental health, we need to open our eyes.
Hurt people hurt people.
We ask that you listen, comprehend, and relate with your ears.
Form that heart of unity and one.
We share on this stage.
Statistics, feelings.
And ourselves.
We stand with the belief to be you, to be heard, and to be original.
We all may be different, with opinions and beliefs.
At the end of the day, we are all brothers and sisters.
We are family.
We ask that you join us in a magical journey with artists from around the world. Open your minds, let in the love,
and listen with your hearts.
We all want a better tomorrow. Be one.
Communicate and look out for one another. And then, and only then, will you find the world.
We will find peace in all the world.
You'll find the world. And you will find in this shining world heroes among us and every boy and girl. Many have been broken, red hearts turn black. Love will melt the ice and turn it back, and you will find the world. You will find the world. You will find the world. And when you find a place called home, where everyone is free to roam, a whole new world, a better place for our children's futures at stake. And you'll find, with music in your soul, laughter in your hearts, together we can grow a better place, with love in us all. And you will find, together we can save it all. And you will find, a place called home, where
Discover digital audio workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear, and MIDI too. How to arrange, compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin Shhh I.T. We're talking Shhh I.T. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much rev. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking Shhh I.T. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking Shhh. We're talking Shhh I.T. We're talking Shhh I.T. Every Thursday night on Angified.
Oh, we're highly educational.
With a lot to learn.
There he is.
It's all about the time.
Let me flip around and look you in the eye.
There you are. I was wondering where you went.
Well, we're back from a little hiatus. We're finishing up the WAG Saturday nights, our WAG 10-year reunion jam night. We got some WAG alumni and some of the contestants from the summer series, all making some jam tracks for final hurrah.
Nice. It's time. WAG time.
Yeah, and I managed to even sneak in on this round. I got Rusty and surprise guest Ange gonna be on there.
Nice. Good round. Got to see how the songs come out.
Yep. So, getting back to some of our themes, tonight we're going to go into some music theory. It's been a while since we've covered some theory, and the one that I wanted to do is chording. Chords. We've talked progressions and things like that on different nights, but over the last couple of years, I'm starting to realize the importance of knowing your chords as much as your scales. As I'm playing around with like these strum plugins for guitar and easy keys with the piano, knowing your chords, you can really go a long way with these arpeggiators and these strummers, and you can pretty much make nice chord arrangements and let the VSTs kind of help you to really smooth them out and make them play things that you might not know how to play directly.
And the funny thing is they kind of help humanize it in terms of the sound, in terms of they can make it sound more like a human's playing it.
Yeah, what's really cool with some of these new plugins like the Strum one, there's a knob for humanizing, and as you turn it, it gets a little more swingy. It starts to feel like a human.
Yeah, it starts to get a little bit less perfect, and that's kind of what helps.
Yeah, and what I'm liking, because I do like that unison chord pack, and you guys keep pushing me towards these like sus2s and sevenths and ninths, and like I only have so many fingers, and utilizing that really helps me to deal with chords that sometimes I have a tough time playing.
Now, one thing that we'll also go into one of the days where we go about chords is when we start talking about shell chords. And we did that once or twice when it came to guitar. And in that case, that's where we start talking about which parts to use and which parts to leave out. So like you're saying, if you've got, a chord that sounds too complicated, a C major, sharp this and flat that or whatever, like as far as all these different things, you wouldn't usually have a sharp and a flat in the same chord, but same idea. Like you have too many different variations, and you're trying to think which notes to add and which ones can you drop. And a lot of times you can drop the 5 because that's the most implied note or the most obvious note. So you can do like the root, skip the 5, but you need the 3 because the 3 is what tells you whether it's major or minor. The 7 gives you that feel, whether it's going to be a Mixolydian feel or a regular major 7 feel or a regular minor 7 feel. So the 3 and the 7 are very important. And then from there, whatever you want to accent after that. So that's where if you get, you mentioned a sus2. Sus chords, you're leaving out the 3 and substituting something else, the 2 or the 4. But with the other ones, you're usually either adding something like an add 9 or a 6/9 or whatever. It'll tell you what kind of variations you're doing. But it also depends how far into the chords you want to get.
Yeah, and you're not lying. You need the root.
Yeah. The root is
Otherwise,
very
we don't
important.
know where the hell we are.
Exactly. Now you can sometimes imply the root where you don't have to actually play it. Like you have a chord that has so many different things going on, you can play all kinds of other things except the root, but you're doing so much else in the chord that it so strongly implies the root that it's okay.
Well, and hopefully
But that's
that
rare.
bassist is doing their job of bringing that root in.
And that's the other thing. That's his job. So
Yeah. So let's head over to the IT cave, and I think you'll see with some of these, they're going to talk about some of these things.
Oh yeah. Let's check it out.
Now I have to flip again. I need to see this
because it's over here.
So, what I found for different chording approaches, you know, I wanted to find some suggestions on how to go out of the box because I'm so old school. Like the chords I tend to go to, they're the ones I've been used to and comfortable with, and trying to find some tricks to explore new chords. And some of these videos really help to get out of your box there.
Yep. I've seen some come up in my feed lately also about like spicing up the right hand and the piano playing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first one is going to be from Bill Hilton, author of How to Be a Better Musician. And he starts with the tricks. This trick creates endless chord progressions. So he's got a trick that can help you to kind of get going and then find chords that complement where you start.
Right.
And then to shift into unexpected chords when you want that surprise chord, you want to go melodic or throw the listener off a little bit. How to Write Songs, the channel that we've been to for a couple of different nights when it comes to composing and songwriting. Use unexpected chords without sounding random, the parallel method. And I figured you're going to be familiar with that.
Sure.
And then I couldn't ignore this one because I was like, what? Keith Horn, he has a chord of the week on his channel, and I think that's such a cool concept. It, this chord has 12 notes. So this may be the biggest damn chord I've ever come across.
Got to get that pedal involved for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm going to need 2 more fingers.
Yep.
And I love toys and gadgets.
Nice.
And I saw this one and I'm like, I thought it was a game controller. I'm like, well, we're getting game controller suggestions on our channel, but it turns out.
Or like a secret lockbox.
It's the minichord. And I couldn't help but notice it kind of leads towards the circle of fifths. If you look at those ones on the top there, and kind of nudges you to understand the relation of them through the circle of fifths.
Nice. That's important.
Yep. So that's going to be coming from Alpha Chrome Yayo. Yay.
Yayo.
And then we got a 2-4. Muse and Measure, another channel that we've looked at on some of our composing nights. Great songwriting advice that comes from this channel. And I picked these two because this one, complements what we're going to be looking at on chords, using chords to make a melody. seem inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
And what you choose for chords tends to kind of lead the melody in certain ways, and
Mm-hmm.
you should be kind of writing your chords and thinking with a melody in mind. Otherwise, the chords kind of play the melody for you if you hear the notes that kind of ring out.
Yeah, it's about the cadence and it's about where you're going. And something like the 2-5-1 is somewhere that you're really your ear just really pulls you to that one. So if you play a 2 and a 5, you're really disappointing people if you're not playing that one.
Yes, and I've been playing with that 2-5-1 in a couple of different projects, and I'm really digging starting with the
Nice.
two.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. You get some good Santana sound with that stuff too.
Yep,
Starting with a
yep,
Dorian mode.
yep. And for the final one, also from Muse and Measure, memory is your best editor in writing melodies. And I wanted to include this one because one of the toughest things I've had over more recent years is remembering my songs and
Mm-hmm.
remembering my ideas and getting them to stick in a way that, like, we jump from song to song these days, and it's hard to get that complete connection to a song where you memorize it and you know it the moment you start playing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to see what he suggests for, helping to improve ways to memorize what you're doing
Sure.
from a chording and a melody perspective.
Mm-hmm. Some of the people I work with, for them, they swear by writing out their own charts because then you're reinforcing the memory of the song while you're writing it out, and you're also doing it in your own shorthand, and then you're reading it as well. And as you're playing it, you're kind of going over it. A couple different ways to help reinforce, but I'm sure there are others as well.
Yeah, see, in the past, I always memorized from band practice. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, every week we're gonna practice this song, and eventually you practice it enough with a band, and you remember your parts.
Mm-hmm.
But writing solo for so long, my different projects start to blend together, and like I think I'm playing one song, and next thing I know, my brain's going into a different song with the same chords.
Oh yeah, I have that happen with bass lines sometimes too. Like I'll get a certain groove going, and then just as I'm hitting this groove, it reminds me of another song, and I get locked into that groove. I'm like, oh, I need to get back to what I was doing.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm hoping he'll help me to improve that part of my memory so that I can really get my new projects to stick in my head.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So let's get started with the
Mm-hmm.
tricks. This one's coming from Bill Hilton, and he's at Bill Hilton over on YouTube.
Right.
Piano tutorials, chords, and music theory. Hey, that's what we're doing tonight. You're the perfect way to start, Bill.
Yes, indeed.
Improvisation and practice tips and more.
Right.
And he's going to show us a trick to create endless chord progressions, which I need that trick in my belt.
Yep, everybody does.
If you're anything like me, then at some point in your life you've been sat in a pub or a bar and there's been a band on and you've noticed that the bass player is wearing a face. It's a face like he's just like got a parking ticket, or he's just got to the front of the queue in Greg's and they've run out of steak bakes or something like that. He's not happy about something. Now, bass players actually do that quite a lot, but one of the main reasons they do it is if they're asked to play the line cliche. Now, this tutorial isn't about the line cliche, but we're going to use it as a starting point. So let me very quickly explain what it is, just in case you've never come across it before. Basically, the line cliche is where you've got a descending bass line, typically going down a scale that is almost kind of defining the chords that go over the top of it. So a classic line cliche implementation might be something like this. Typically they jump up to the 5th chord at the end, so you can loop them over and do all kinds of things with them. Now, the line cliche has a bit of a bad reputation, especially among bass players, for being dull, and it is quite dull to play. But if you're just getting into songwriting or improvisation or chords or harmony or whatever, it's worth knowing about because it can actually generate really kind of solid songs or tracks, yeah? But like I said, we're not going to actually use that kind of style of line cliche today. What we're going to do is use the thinking behind it to generate some chord progressions of our own. Because if you take that basic idea of the descending bass line, you can come up with a huge number of really interesting progressions, yeah? So let me show you this progression that I came up with literally a few minutes ago, yeah, just before I started shooting this video. It's just a 4-bar loop and it goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 5 chords spread over 4 bars to give me a really neat little loop. You could use it for all kinds of things. You could use it as a basis of a song. You could use it to practice your improvisation. Yeah, and you can create lots of different chord progressions using that technique. Let me just explain the actual kind of thought process I went through here. I literally started with a random chord, A flat major 7, and I thought to myself, what I'm going to do is try descending, at least to start with, in semitones, in half steps. So I'm going to be going A flat G, G flat F, and so on downwards. So if that's my first chord, then the next chord I need is something based on this G, and a really natural thing to go for there is that shape. So that's an E flat major chord, basic E flat major. I'm playing it in first inversion, and straight away that's giving me some really useful information because I've gone from A flat major 7 to E flat. I'm kind of getting the feeling of something that is in the key of E flat. I didn't start with a key in mind, but that sounds like a 4-1 resolution if you're familiar with the music theory. So straight away I think, right, I'm kind of in E flat here. That chord itself is it's a little bit of an awkward stretch, okay? So I'm going to reduce the stretch and also make it more interesting by playing the F instead of the G. So we're going from A flat major 7 to E flat add 9. Okay, my next note I know is G flat, which doesn't appear in the key of E flat major. So I know this is going to be a non-diatonic chord. It's not one of the chords that I can naturally grow out of the E flat major scale. Don't worry too much if you don't know all of this music theory, by the way. Just kind of roll with it for now, and I'll talk about some stuff you can do later. So a natural chord for me to grow off there, and again I'm kind of in black note territory, so I'm going to go for that G flat major 7. That is, if you're familiar with the terminology, that is what we would call a chromatic mediant chord in the key of E flat. I'm not going to hang around on that chord for long. I'm going to go straight down to my next chord on F. A really natural chord to go for there is F minor 7. And then I'm going to jump the E, but I don't have to. We'll come back to that in a second, and land on my E flat. And that gives me a 4-bar chord progression. So I've got a bar of A flat major 7. I've got a bar of E flat add 9. 2 beats of my G flat major 7. 2 beats of my F minor 7. And then a full bar of that. I've done that not by applying lots of kind of theoretical thinking. I've just kind of felt my way because I'm really familiar with the scales of E flat and A flat major and that kind of thing. So those are the notes that kind of fall under my fingers. Yet another reason to practice your scales, okay? What about that missing E? I could very easily drop a passing chord in there. I could drop quite a cool passing chord in there, which would be E7, which seems very remote from the key of E flat major, but it's a brilliant substitute for the 5 chord in E flat major. So that would be B flat or B flat 7, and that's what we call a tritone substitution for the B flat 7. Okay, so from the well, let's go from the top. I've got my A flat, down to my E flat add 9, down to my G flat major 7, F minor 7, E7, E flat 7. If you're enjoying this, by the way, if you like my style, if you like my approach, check out my various resources. Down in the links below, you'll find links to my books. Especially, I think you might like my latest book, PDF, of How to Be a Better Musician, full of practice tips. Also, check out my Patreon community, which has got tons of resources. I've got videos, I've got podcasts, I've got articles, PDFs, loads of stuff in the community. Plus, it's really friendly and fun. We have great chat. I think you'll really like it. It doesn't cost much to sign up. Patreon.com/Bill Hilton. Anyway, what can you do with this idea for yourself? Let me give you a little challenge, okay? I'm going to give you a chord to start with, and that chord is G minor 7. I'm going to say to you, I want you to get, using that descending technique, that line cliche type technique, I want you to get down to D7. Okay, so rather than going 4-1, as we were doing when we were doing that A flat to E flat, we're going to be going 1-5, because the D7 resolves really nicely back to the G minor 7 at the top there. And you can go down in semitones, in tones, steps or half steps if you're in the States, and just feel out the chords, feel what makes sense. I've been talking about this a lot recently, but it really, really matters. So many adult learners especially try and work out all the theory first and think, oh, I've got to know this, I've got to know that. Get your hands on the keyboard, play stuff. If it sounds good, great. If it doesn't, fine. But when you sound a chord, you know, when you play a chord that sounds cool, try and work out why it sounds cool. Learn the theory that way rather than by trying to memorize loads of stuff, yeah?
Oh, great advice from Bill.
Definitely.
And he got into the substitutions.
Yeah, absolutely. Chromatic median.
Yeah, I like how he implemented that.
Yeah, definitely.
And I also want to improve my descending chord approach. That's something that I do a lot, but I always go to the same chords. I like that he started with the A flat, and even though it wasn't the key that he was in, he recognized what
felt like home.
What scale, what scale he was actually in based on the chord that he started with. Oh, did we get a blip? Oh, Houston, we have a problem. Earth calling Glenn. Well, that was at Bill Hilton over on YouTube. And for our next one, we're going to go to How to Write Songs, which is at HTWS over on YouTube. Another great channel for songwriting tips, composing tips. They've also got sister channels that do vocal tips, piano tips, everything. Great songwriting duo coming from here, Kepi and Ben. And what they're going to cover with this one is how to use unexpected chords without sounding random, the parallel method.
In every key, there are 7 chords, chords that belong together, sound good together. But there is a world beyond those diatonic chord groupings, a world that is full of iconic songs, timeless compositions, and arguably some of the most beautiful, intriguing, and captivating music. that humans have ever created. And it is into this world that we are going to venture today. And that chord progression I was just playing was created using a very simple method, a method that gives you access to some of those less common sounds. So if you're bored with your chord progressions, if you're looking for new and interesting ways to put chords together, and most importantly, if you're looking for a way of repeatedly coming up with interesting, less predictable, and emotionally rich chord sequences, this video is for you. So the method we'll be using today is called the parallel method, and that name comes from the term parallel modulation, which is a particular method for changing key throughout a song, and it's often used to create contrast between sections. However, the way we're going to use it today is a little bit different. What I'm going to do is show you how to construct chord sequences at the beginning of the songwriting process. So we're going to break the parallel method down into 3 simple steps. Step 1, choose a key and lay out the chords of that key. Step 2, take the parallel key and lay out the chords of that key. And then step 3, start creating sequences using chords from both keys. So let's pick the key of G to work with. Now, step 1, lay out the chords in the key of G. And the key of G has the chords G, A minor, B minor, C, D, E minor, F sharp diminished. And if you're not sure which chords belong to each key, I've created a free PDF mapping out all 12 keys and the chords in each of those keys. And this will be a handy reference as we move deeper into this parallel process. So if you're interested, you'll find the link below. So we've got our chords in the key of G. The second step is to take the parallel key and lay out its chords. Now, if we're working in the key of G, the parallel key is G minor. And this is the way it works for any key. If we're in the key of C, the parallel is C minor. If we're in the key of A flat, the parallel is A flat minor. And again, just to make it easier for you, in that free PDF, I've actually laid out these parallel pairings so you can quickly see the two side by side. So our parallel key is G minor. And in the key of G minor, we have G minor, A diminished, B flat, C minor, D minor, E flat, and F. So now we can quickly move on to step 3 and start creating some chord sequences with this parallel system, because we now have these 2 keys laid out alongside each other, in parallel to each other. And it is from this expanded set of chords that we can now start creating our chord progression. And a really nice way to start is to create a 4-chord progression, moving back and forth between the 2 keys. So the template we might begin with is 1 chord from G major, 1 chord from G minor, 1 chord from G major, 1 chord from G minor, alternating back and forth between the 2. Instantly, we have a chord progression that is less common, more surprising, more unusual. And a nice way to visualize this is to jump over to Hook Theory, looking at the most common chord moves that they've identified in their database of songs. So we'll make sure we're in the key of G major. You'll see the diagram change, but you'll also see the songs in the database that are being referenced to create this data. And what this diagram is really showing you is if we start in the key of G on the G chord, what are the chords that most commonly come next? So we can see that 16% of the time, the second chord is the D chord. We have the C chord, the 4 chord in the key of G at 14%. We have B minor 4%, A minor 5%, E minor 9%. And these percentages just represent the most common chord moves in this key. And then there's this gray circle here that says other. And if we click into that, we get all of these other chords appearing. And within this huge batch of chord options, we have the C minor down here, the chord that we have used as our second chord at less than 0.5%. So what that means is using this parallel method has instantly created a chord progression that is statistically unique. We don't hear this move, G to C minor, as often as we hear lots of other chord combinations. And this is a really powerful piece of information to have when you're trying to construct interesting, unique, surprising chord progressions that don't just sound like all the other songs out there. But of course, we're not just trying to make unique sounding chord progressions for the sake of making unique sounding chord progressions. We have to always be mindful of the fact that every time we make a choice with our chords, we're creating a different mood. And our mission as songwriters is to really tap into that mood that's been created and match it appropriately with lyrical and melodic content. Okay, so back to our chord progression in the key of G. We've got this pattern where we're starting on the G, then moving to a chord in the parallel G minor, then going back to the G major, then going to another chord in the parallel G minor. So alternating back and forth between the two parallel keys is one kind of template. We can create another kind of template. And this template is going to be one chord from the major, one from the minor, another from the minor, and then back to the major. Or maybe we could do this one. And even if you just stick with 4 chord sequences, this way of coming up with chord progressions is a game changer, because suddenly we're liberated from the 7 chords that exist within the key. Suddenly you have different colors to paint with, you have different moods that you can create. And something else just started to happen as I was playing through those chords, especially that last one. Suddenly, melodies are starting to emerge from this process. And this is another magical thing about the parallel method. You're not just creating interesting chord progressions, you're creating a situation where you feel empowered and inspired to come up with some beautiful melodies. And they're beautiful because they have these little elements of surprise embedded in them, because they're emerging from these unique chord combinations. And what this parallel method is really doing is introducing some ambiguity into the musical equation, sonic ambiguity. And what I mean by that is, when we're writing in one key, it's usually quite clear where the tonal center of that song is. But in a parallel system, that stability isn't quite there because we're moving between 2 different keys. And so it allows us to create some of these more subtle, ambiguous musical landscapes. And you hear this done beautifully in a number of songs. One song that comes to mind is Lou Reed's Perfect Day. That song begins with 2 chords going back and forth, the F chord to the B flat minor. And what's interesting about that is you've got the F chord belonging to one key and you've got the B flat minor belonging to the parallel key. So from the very first note, the very first beat of that song, we are introduced sonically to this parallel system, and that sets the tone for the entire song. Because as you move through the rest of the progression, you can see that Lou Reed really is jumping back and forth between the 2 parallel keys that he's established from the very beginning. Not only that, we have the verses leaning more heavily on the B flat minor and the choruses shifting to the B flat major. So we have this tonal shift between the sections, and this is also how this parallel system is commonly used. So now that you're familiar with the parallel concept, we can look at a few other templates and practical ways to use this method in your songwriting. Another template that we can use is one chord from G major, another chord from G major, a third chord from G major, and the 4th chord coming from the parallel minor. And this template has a particular effect because we're hearing 3 chords in a row from G major. So the ear is getting comfortable being in that key. And then we hear the 4th chord come along from the minor and it suddenly breaks that pattern. And that kind of sequence works really well as a loop. But another way of using this technique is to delay the introduction of that parallel minor even further, which really enhances the impact of it when it finally arrives. And it also allows us to pivot the chord progression in a different direction. So I'm going to play through 4 chords, all from the same key, all from G major. And then I'm going to do the sequence again. And on the second time round, on the last chord, I'm going to use a borrowed chord to pivot the whole progression into a different direction. And now it feels like we're starting to think in terms of sections. So we're creating one mood or one tonal center for one section and then shifting the tonal center and shifting the mood in the next section. And this again is really powerful if you're writing your song and looking for contrast between your sections, or looking to take your listener on a particular journey, or looking to support a narrative twist or a change of direction in your lyrics. Whatever the reason, having this parallel method really explodes the options available to you so you can make deliberate choices when writing your songs. Remember, that free downloadable PDF has all of these parallel pairings laid out for you so you can start experimenting with your own combinations of chords. And please post in the comments any interesting chord progressions or combinations you come up with. I'd love to see them. I'd love to play through them and try them out. And happy songwriting. Bye.
Wow, Ben, that was an awesome explanation there on the parallel chording method. Uh, so you can have a major scale that you're building your chords in and use the minor version of that scale. And he's not kidding. That opens up so many options. It does give a kind of unexpected shift in the mood of the chords that you're writing, but it sounds very pleasant going between them. That's a great way to write unique progressions. Like as he said, these are not common in most music written out there, but they do work, and that's a great way to surprise your listener. That was at How to Write Songs at HTWS over on YouTube. Fantastic channel for songwriters who want to improve their game. There's so many tips and tricks coming from them. So for our next one, we are going to look at a super chord. This chord has 12 notes. This one's coming from Keith Horn over at Keith_Horn on YouTube, and uh, he has a chord of the week where every week he explores different chords and what they're useful for. And this one, I, I had no idea that there was a chord that could have 12 notes in it. We're going to need more fingers in order to hit chords like this. But I'm curious as to how it's going to sound.
This is a 12-tone chord by Alban Berg. Welcome to
Keith Horn's Chord of the Week.
Alban Berg was a student of the great Arnold Schoenberg in the early 20th century, and I know some of you are going to disagree with the word great, but I think Schoenberg is great. And along with Anton Webern, these three Austrian composers eventually became known as the Second Viennese School. And what sets them apart from their predecessors is their extreme chromaticism and eventually their adoption of the serialistic 12-tone technique in which all 12 chromatic tones are treated equally. In 1912, Berg wrote his Fünf Orchesterlieder, or 5 orchestral songs, the third of which is called Beyond the Boundaries of the Universe, and it starts with this chord. It contains all 12 chromatic pitches, and here they are. It's a gnarly chord. It's not a pretty chord, although maybe some of you think this is a beautiful sounding chord. I actually happen to really like it, and I'm not even going to attempt to label it. In my own mind, I see patterns. So there's a fifth here, there's a fourth here, there's a triad here, there's a diminished triad here, and there's a Viennese trichord up here. So those are all sort of put together, but the whole chord is this. Now, I like to call it the universe chord because of the libretto.
Recite him some lyrics.
You gazed thoughtfully beyond the boundaries of the universe. You never worried about your farm and house, life and the dream of life, suddenly everything is over. You still gaze thoughtfully beyond the boundaries of the universe. That's heavy.
There's that word again, heavy.
The orchestra, which is only made up of wind instruments, plays this chord 5 times in a row, but what makes it so unique is, each time, the composer changes up which instruments are playing each note. So even though the voicing is exactly the same, it seems to change color each time it comes around, and it never repeats. I sequenced the chord with virtual instruments to illustrate it more clearly, and I tried it a few different ways. Here's the full version with all 5 iterations of the chord with virtual instruments. Then I isolated the woodwinds only, which is 8 instruments, then the brass only, which is the other 4. Just to listen to it. Then I tried it for fun with muted strings. Check this one out. I love that one. And because I love the percussion section, I grew up a percussionist and a guitar player, and I played marimba for many years. I thought I'd try it for tuned percussion, and that one sounds like this.
Nice!
And you might be thinking, what in the world am I going to do with a crazy chord like that? I mean, why are you even talking about this? This is barely even a chord. Well, I did something with it. Check it out. It's funky. It's weird. I'm going to keep working on it. And I think it's important to point out the similarity to another piece, Arnold Schoenberg's Farben, which is the third movement of his 5 pieces for orchestra, written 3 years before this, in 1909. Listen to that real quick. It's the same thing where the chord repeats over and over again without changing, but the distribution of the notes across the orchestra, that's what changes, and the colors shift. The tone colors shift. Around 1911, Schoenberg coined the term Klangfarben melody, or sound color melody. It's a technique that treats timbre or tone color as its own fundamental element that's independent from melody, from harmony, from rhythm. And both of these pieces use this technique, and it creates this, it's more of a sound effect really. It just kind of shifts and morphs the sound in a similar way that like light slowly shifts from one thing to another. Berg composed 5 orchestral songs at the very end of his 7 years of studying with Arnold Schoenberg, and the effect of those years really shows in his work. The music of Schoenberg changed dramatically in the first decade of the 20th century. Early on, it was more romantic leaning and kind of Wagnerian, and eventually it became this pure atonal chromaticism. And his top 2 students, Berg and Webern, had a front row seat to that process. So by the beginning of the 1910s, these 3 guys were starting a revolution in music. A 12-tone, serialistic, dodecaphonic revolution. Whether that revolution succeeded or not is another discussion, but it sounded something like this.
Yeah, who this? This piece, yo, who this? Yo, who this? Who this?
Oh, who this? This is I.T. Wow, Keith, that is a very cool chord. the mystery and the drama that it brings. I feel like I would hear in like, you know, old school mystery or detective thriller where it's like who done it, and that chord gives a perfect way to give that like suspenseful feeling of the mystery has been solved. I love the idea of this chord. I'm working on a horror movie with some friends, and this kind of chord could fit really well into that. I think for composers out there looking for something a little different on the chording side, that's one they should know about. That was at Keith underscore Horn over on YouTube. And check out his chord of the week. If the other ones are as interesting as this, you're going to find a lot of different flavors each week there. So our next video, we're going to get into a gadget here. I love my gadgets, and this one is a small little music theory in a what looks like a game controller almost. Um, if you look at the top, the the chords that it starts with up on the top follow the circle of fifths, and if you're ever dealing with chords in theory, the circle of fifths is a good thing to drill into your brain. And I think a little tool like this could come in real handy for phrasing out your chords and coming up with your progressions. This one's going to be coming from Alpha Chrome Yayo over on YouTube. And it does look like he experiments with all sorts of cool little toys here. So I will be back to see what gadgets and cool things he has found. One of our freshy channels of the week. But let's take a look at the mini chord and why he loves it, and you might too.
This is a mini chord. It's a very special instrument and I love it to bits. So I'll tell you a bit more about it, show you how to play it, and I'll also teach you how to make this cool, juicy Y2K style translucent enclosure. Hey, I'm ACY and I make vibey music for cool games and for your stereos, and I also love unusual instruments, and this lovely little guy definitely is pretty unusual. It's an open source synthesizer designed by Benjamin Poilve, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I think he's made something really special here. Now, if you're at all familiar with Suzuki's legendary Omnichord range, you'll notice some immediate similarities here. It's pretty clear where the mini chord takes its inspiration. Both allow chord progressions to be played and kind of magically strummed using a series of buttons and a special strip. But this is not a simple rip-off. The mini chord is very much its own instrument with its own set of cool features and quirks and an incredibly charming, warm sound. First, let's take a look at the basic functions. On the left here, we've got 3 rows of buttons, each corresponding to a chord. Up top, major chords, and in the middle it's minor, and 7ths on the bottom. This little button here gives sharps. You can also combine buttons, and if you dig even deeper, we've got stuff like augmented chords and alternate root notes, which is really nice. But where it gets really fun is with this bit here. So we can hold down a chord, and then we can strum it a bit like a guitar or a harp. And then if we tap this, we can also hear the individual notes in the chord, or maybe more likely a couple of notes together, because it's small and my hands are big. It's really easy to just pick up and play, and I love that sense of immediacy, and straight out of the box it sounds awesome. Here's a thing I recorded like 5 minutes after the delivery driver dropped it off. just lovely. Now, if you're particularly eagle-eyed, or to be honest, even if you're not, you will have noticed a couple of interesting things about that clip. The first being that the mini chord you saw there was ice white, whereas this is this kind of juicy pinky purple translucent one. That's because I customized it myself, and I will show you later in the video how to do that. The white still looks great, but when I realized this was an option, I had to have it. The second thing you might have noticed is that even though I was holding down the chord buttons, only some of the time the chords were ringing throughout without me necessarily having to have the button pressed in. That's because we have a hold function here, which is super handy and much appreciated. Okay, let's take a look at the rest of the controls. This knob up top controls the chord volume. I'll show you that hold function as well. Then, as you might have guessed, this knob is for the strum volume. Now, I'm using the word strum, but in the manual they call this, I think, the touch zone. And let me tell you, baby, these sounds are touching me in all the right places. The next knob down here is for effects. It comes with a dozen presets, and each has its own bank of effects going on mapped to this control. They're all really fun and tasteful too. And talking of presets, we can whiz between them with these two buttons down here. They all sound great. Something else I really appreciate is that the LED changes colour with each patch, which is super pretty and lets you know at a glance which one you're on. Neat. So those are some of the built-in sounds, but can you make your own presets? Well, yes, and thankfully, it's pretty easy to do. There's an in-browser editor available that you can also save for offline use, and it breaks down every function available on the synthesizer. It's pretty bare bones in terms of UI, but honestly, it wears it well. It's kind of nice being alone with just the instrument and the sounds. You can save and share patches as well, which is really cool and community driven. Now, something else that I was really interested in is that with the latest firmware update, the mini chord also functions as a MIDI controller. So if you've got a bunch of hardware or software synthesizers, you can control them with this little guy and amazingly make them instantly strummable. In that clip you just saw, I had the mini chord buttoned up to Omnisphere for a kind of lap steel type of sound, and something else I really love attaching it to is my beloved Roland JV 1080. It's fun and inspiring, and it kind of makes you think a bit differently about the sounds that you're using. And to be honest, that element of musical lateral thinking is maybe one of my favourite things about this instrument. It even runs right down to the design of it. You might notice that the chords are laid out in a somewhat unusual way, running F, C, G, D, A, E, B. Now when I first got it, I'll admit that seemed a little strange to me, and I originally planned on reprogramming it and moving the keycaps over so it was a more traditional chromatic layout. But honestly, I like this way better. It gets you out of your own head somehow and encourages playful experimentation. Combined with the fact that everything is so immediate, it's great just to kind of sit down with, switch off your theory brain for a minute and just get a bit weird. The mini chord clearly excels as a solo instrument, one you can stick in your pocket when you're going somewhere nice or just noodle with on the sofa, but I don't think it has to end there. For example, it's also really nice to use for simple accompaniments. Here I am combining it with my Taishoguro synthesizer, the Waraku TES 100, also made by Suzuki of Omnichord fame. It's loads of fun, and of course when it comes to using it in full tracks, the possibilities are endless. Especially as many of these buttons have secondary functions, which I haven't even gone into yet. For instance, there's, well, what's called rhythm mode, which is basically an arpeggiator. and there are ways of playing more complex chord structures. All in all, I think the minichord is a gorgeous instrument on so many levels, and the price is right too. I mean, I think I got this one for something like £150. That was including delivery, maybe 160. It was in and around that. You know, not pocket change, but certainly at the very low end of the spectrum when it comes to anything synthesizer related. That was for the pre-made version, but it's open source as well, like I said, and it's built around the Teensy 4.0. So, you know, if you're so inclined and if you've got the skills, you can build it yourself from the ground up.
And we have the tools, we have the talent.
And I also think there's talk of it being offered in kit form at some point, which would be a really nice way to do it. Just a bit of gentle soldering, and then at the end of it you've got yourself something very cool at a presumably even nicer price. Now, I said earlier I would talk about how to make this cool translucent enclosure, and that's what we'll get into now. Now, if you're at all familiar with who I am, what I do, the stuff that I like, it will come as absolutely no surprise that I love that kind of late 90s, early Y2K look, the translucent enclosure in a fruity, juicy hue where you can see the guts inside. So while the original white plastic version looks really cool, I've seen ones in black plastic too online which look awesome as well. I saw like something similar to this on the designer's own Instagram, and I just knew I had to at least try it. And thankfully, it actually wasn't too hard. Here's how to do it. First up, I grabbed the STL files for the enclosure from the project GitHub and sent them off to be 3D printed on transparent resin. Honestly, I wasn't sure how good it would look or if it would even really work that well, but I was very pleasantly surprised by the results. I used JLC 3DP, and I think with fast shipping it was something like 40 quid all in all. One thing to mention is that when I uploaded the files, they got flagged saying that some bits might be too thin and, you know, they might not print out correctly or they could be warped somehow. I thought I would just risk it, and thankfully it turned out great. The next thing I needed was a die, so I went for this one by RIT. I'd heard that their die more range would hopefully work for something like this. And now it's a matter of adding the dye to some hot water at a 1:5 ratio, so 1 part dye to 5 parts hot water, and mixing well. And then time to dip our bits, so to speak. Temperature is the real key here, so I used a kitchen thermometer to keep an eye on it. I started with 73 degrees Celsius, as that felt pretty hot, but actually it really needed closer to 80 degrees to get the stain to stick properly. And of course, the mix will start to cool down, so when it's really hot, you're maybe only dipping for a few seconds, but as it begins to cool, you can keep the parts in for longer. I also reheated the mix in the microwave a couple of times to bring it back up to 80 degrees Celsius. Once you're happy and the parts look evenly coated, take them out, give them a good rinse under the tap, make sure not to splash dye everywhere, and then leave them to dry on some kitchen roll. And while that's happening, you can take apart the minichord, which is pretty straightforward. The touch zone just lifts off, but be careful not to snap it because it's on there quite firmly. Then the case has 6 tiny screws with another 3 inside holding the PCB in place. The dyed case was pretty dry by now, but I gave it a good rub down to be sure, getting into all the crevices. You don't want any moisture or condensation causing issues inside the unit. Then just reassemble everything, and here we go! All Y2K'd up, baby. I love how it turned out. It really reminds me of this particular third-party Sega Mega Drive controller I had when I was a kid, and I mean that as a sincere compliment. So yeah, that's the minichord. I love it. I'm sure I'm going to use it for some cool work stuff, but honestly, I just can't wait to go somewhere remote and relax with this thing, and it's very capable in both those regards. And of course, most importantly, it is a joy to play and it sounds wonderful. If you want to learn more, head to minichord.com for all the information. And also, if you're on Instagram, I really recommend checking out Benjamin Poilvay's profile on there. He's got cool videos of it, he's got more information about it, it rules. And while you're on there, if you want to check me out too, I'm on Instagram. I don't use it that much, but I kind of do. If you really want to follow me, I'm on Blue Sky, I post there all the time. And if you want to hear music from me, please check me out on Bandcamp. Support on there helps me so much, and I have shitloads of music. So hopefully you'll like at least some of it. I am ACY. This is the minichord. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.
ACY over at Alpha Chrome Yayo.
Yeah.
We got Glenn's attention back.
Internet decided to say no to me for a while.
Oh, I thought these tips just blew your socks off and took your internet with you.
It blew the internet socks off, so I don't know. But I'm back.
Well, that was a cool little musical device. I would love to see something like that get included with like game consoles for like, musical games and things.
Oh yeah.
This would complement like those Guitar Hero types of games and other things where rather than focusing on, the timing on a neck, focusing on chords and actual progressions. It's a nifty little device.
Yeah. And I like the whole, the new enclosure he built for it. That was very cool.
Yeah, being able to customize it like that, that's also kind of cool. And he gave a great review on it. I was asking in the middle of it, this is really cool, but does it do MIDI? And sure enough, he answered my question. Thank you, ACY.
Exactly. Just the information you needed.
Yeah, and not while it was playing, I went and searched, and it's not on the cheap side, but it's like he said, it's not on the expensive side either. If you were to buy, say, like one of the like synthesizers that start in that price range, that might come with some of these features, but it's very intuitive the way you approach it with this, and every one of those buttons is useful on it. This is the kind of toy that I would love in my stocking, Santa.
Like the world's smallest accordion, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I love the idea of a musical instrument that looks like a game controller.
So do I. I actually had, we talked about it at one point. It was a guitar controller, and you would strum, and the spot where you're strumming was like nylon strings, but they were not under the right tension, so they wouldn't sound like notes when you're hitting them. And on the neck, you're actually just hitting buttons. So it's like when you hit this button and you strum, it'll register that note, So it was kind of, sort of, almost towards the guitar end of a toy, but it was definitely much more of a toy.
Yeah, well, this one, it's so small and compact. I mean, it seems like it's more useful for like writing the ambient style paddings and layers that you would want to add behind your music. But I could see someone on the stage like rocking one of these.
To me, I think the idea is more even songwriting, just like having a whole entire chord library at your fingertips where, when you get comfortable with, like you were saying, all the different add substitutions, you don't have to worry about, oh, is it a black note on this one or a white note or whatever. You're just, which buttons to hit on the little thing to say, okay, this one is an add 9 and this one is a flat 7 or whatever. And you can make all the chords you want. And then when you get the sound that you want, then you get it written out, and now you can orchestrate it on whatever instrumentation you want. But this is just to get the ideas out, or to see, explore different, chord types at your fingertips.
And I like that, like, you really can't mess up with the approach that they take. It puts you in the right chords for relative to the other ones that you're playing in, and over time, even if you're not big on the theory side, you start to learn the theory.
Your ear will start to learn.
If you've got these tools, it'll help you to develop your theory as well.
Yeah, I like it.
So it's not just fun; it's educational.
Not just a toy.
So now we're getting down to our twofer. I grabbed 2 from Muse and Measure for tonight, and the first one, is focused more on the chord side, everything that we looked at. This is at Muse Measure over on YouTube, and lots of great songwriting, composing advice on this channel. It's one that we've looked at on our other theory nights and songwriting nights. And for this one, he's going to talk about using chords to make a melody seem inevitable. So I'm kind of curious as to what he means by inevitable. Like making a chord that it makes you expect something, and that's exactly the kind of thing I'm trying to get better at with my progressions. Whether you're trying to build up suspense or leading to resolution, and thinking in terms of melody, what's going on with these chords.
Yep. And some of it would come down to cadence, like we talked about. Some of it would come down to, whether you're doing that 2-5-1, you're doing something where you are getting something to pull to the one. So going from that 5 to the 1 is the strongest way to pull to the 1, but there are other ways to do it as well.
There are multiple ways.
Yep.
And you missed the earlier one on the parallel chording approach, which blew my mind at the amount of options. With these other chording tips and that parallel approach, I feel like the entire keyboard's like an option for me these days.
Nice. Can get you expanding your vocabulary.
Oh, and wait till I show you that 12-note chord, because that had some cool stuff. You're gonna like that one.
Nice. All right.
So let's see how using chords to make a melody seem inevitable, what kind of approach he takes here.
And right there, he's talking about the plagal cadence right there in the thumbnail.
Yeah, I particularly put it there because I was like, Glenn's gonna notice that.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I
the
know
4 to the 1.
Greetings, fellow songwriters and seekers, and welcome back to Muse and Measure. If you haven't done so yet, please hit the subscribe button down below over there. So we've been talking about inevitable melodies that just feel like they have to go where they go, and they just sound like something that's familiar, even though they might be brand new to us. We can kind of anticipate where they're going to go. The surprises delight us, and then they resolve into something that feels like returning home. That's what an inevitable melody. I want to talk today about a little bit about how the chords and the harmony help support that. So there are in traditional, what we call classical music, but it's really Western art music. Classical's kind of a specific period of European art music. There's the use of what are called cadences. And cadences just mean how a phrase ends. So the standard one, probably the most common one, is what's called an authentic cadence, which is just the 5 chord. So if I'm in the key of C, the 5 chord would be C, D, E, F, G, would be G. So at the end of a authentic cadence, you have the 5 going to the 1. That's a common one. So if you want your melody to sound inevitable, at the very end, you want the second to the last chord to be the 5 chord, and then the final chord to be the 1 chord, whatever key you're in, doesn't matter. Now, that's even the case in minor. So they will make if the 1 chord is a minor, they will make the 5 chord major so that it can have that strong pull back to 1. So this authentic cadence even works in minor keys, going from the 5 to the 1. But the 5 is a major chord and the 1 is a minor. The other common harmonic progression is what's called the plagal cadence, and you might know it as Amen. So that's another way of having, which is a little less strong of an inevitable ending. Doesn't have that same weight of 5 to 1, but it also has a very strong resolution. The 4 of the plagal cadence really wants to go to the 1. So yeah, so plagal cadence is the 4 chord going to the 1 chord. And what the Beatles did very often was they did 4, then 4 minor to 1. Making all our nowhere plans for nobody. So plagal with a little minor added into there. And then, so these all give us the sense of inevitability. So at the end of our phrases, we can either go from 5 to 1 or 4 to 1. Sometimes, though, we want to have a surprise. And so the last cadence that I'll tell you about is called the deceptive cadence. So you're playing along. There's the 5, and we feel like it wants to go to 1, but you do something different. You do some kind of surprise. So there I went to the 6 instead of the 1. So that's what's called a deceptive cadence, because the listener is definitely expecting when that 5 chord hits that you're going to go to 1, especially at the end of a phrase. We've been trained in it because 99% of all the songs we've ever heard our whole lives, the 5 goes to the 1. But in this case, because of our expectation, we are going to be surprised. So that's why it's called deceptive, because it deceives us. It tricks us into thinking that, oh, it's about to go to the 1. Nope, it's going to the 6. So once again, so here's 1 chord, 2 chord, 5 chord. Can even make it a dominant chord, a 7th chord, to really pull that it really wants to go to the 1, but I'm not giving you the 1, I'm giving you the 6. So that's a fun thing to do, to play with the listener's expectations with those cadences. So the harmony, the chords that you're using with your melodies can definitely support this feeling of inevitability, and give the listener what they're expecting, especially at the end of a phrase, so that they know, okay, we're at the end of a section. This feels like, oh yeah, this feels like coming back home. Just like, when you watch a movie, you're expecting certain things to happen at the end. And now, we don't always want to do that. We want to break convention at times and deceive our expectations for the listener and fool them, and then give them something that's a total surprise. So that's when you want to use the deceptive cadence. All right, well, if you have any questions or comments, please put them down below, and I wish you the best of luck with your melody and songwriting. Take care.
Oh, I like that he covered.
Sorry. Switch was off.
I like that he covered both the inevitable resolution approach, which is the most common approach. It's what most music is built off of, but then he complemented it with the deceptive approach. I like the plagal.
Yeah, definitely. And anytime you can always throw in that 6 instead of the 1, you're getting that minor feel. Feels a little different than what you're expecting.
Yeah, when he started talking about, like, if you don't want to resolve, and I'm like, he's going to go to the 6. Mm-hmm. He's going to go to the 6.
Go. He's got it.
I was actually expecting it.
Yep. There's only so many you can go to, right? And certain ones sound better than others. The 6 is the most closely related to the 1 because it is the relative minor. So I always, again, go back to the C major example. So C major and A minor are related. So if you just go 3 half steps back from a major chord, you'll get to the minor root.
Yep. And it's a good thing to throw in, like, in select spots to give that kind of unique progression. Mm-hmm. You just don't hear it as much. That's why it sounds more unique.
Mm-hmm. Deceptive, surprising.
Yes. At Muse Measure, this channel really does have great songwriting advice. All these channels tonight that we looked at, all great channels for composers and songwriters. Mm-hmm. And for our last one, also from at Muse Measure, this is some advice on using memory. It's your best editor in writing, for writing melodies. Utilizing your memory to really improve your melody writing.
Right. And memory is important. And that's one of those things, like you were saying, it's, And for me, it's when we're in a rehearsal and just trying to get something down. You'll have an idea, you're thinking about it, you play it, it's great, but you don't record it, it's gone. Like if you didn't catch a snippet of it in some way, shape, or form, like writing it down or on a napkin or just recording a little snippet into your phone, whatever, get a piece of it somehow, because if you don't, it is ethereal. It will just vanish on you.
Yeah, and even when I record it, getting it to stick, getting it to really like feeling comfortable enough that I can't forget it. That has become the challenge with so many songs. The more and more that you write and the more projects that you have, and especially if you got a bunch of them in the same kind of scale ballparks,
Or style,
they all start to blend together. So getting that unique one, that song to really stick in the brain is challenging sometimes.
Yeah, that's again why it's just so important just to catch a little piece of it, even because we'll be at a rehearsal, somebody will just be noodling something and we like the sound of it, so we'll just get a recording of it real quick. Doesn't matter how the recording sounds, if levels are right, if the effects are right, all that. Not worried about it. Just get a piece of it down, because next week if we say, hey, let's do that song we started working on last week, if we didn't catch a piece of it, nobody's going to remember exactly what we did. We might remember what key it was in and about how fast it was, but it's going to count, it's going to sound totally different. But if we recorded it, we listened back to a section of it, everybody's right on the same page because it's right there.
Yeah, that's why I loved recording band practices, because between the next practice, I'm listening to that last practice every day and reinforcing it until the next time we get together.
Exactly.
So let's see how to improve our memory.
All right.
Greetings, fellow songwriters and seekers, and welcome back to Muse and Measure. I'm wearing a suit today because I've returned to work. My long and glorious sabbatical has ended, and I'm back to the joys of teaching. Although I felt like I did get to keep up my teaching chops through this YouTube channel, and I want to especially thank all of you who've commented and sent questions. That's meant so much to me, and even negative or criticisms that people have sent me have helped me so much in this process, and I really am very grateful to you for that. So please keep those questions and comments coming. Thank you all for of those of you who just subscribed as well, and if you haven't subscribed yet, just click that button down below. I'd really appreciate it. I just want to give you a quick little melody hack that I've learned recently, and I would tell you the source, but I've heard it from so many different places that I feel like it's just kind of out there, so I won't bother with that. But if you know of a particular person who came up with this, please put it down in the comments and I'll be sure to credit them. But basically it's using your memory and your forgetting as well to kind of cut the fat out of a melody. There's this old kind of a beat slogan, vividness is self-selecting, which means that we remember what we remember. And well, what the heck does that mean? What that means is like what is vivid, what is poignant is easy to remember. And what is not, what is kind of inconsequential or doesn't resonate with us, has no emotional connection with our experience, that just goes by the wayside. So we can use that as a tool for kind of just letting melodies edit themselves through the natural mental processes of pruning and myelination. So if you know a little bit of neurology like I do, I very little. Basically when you sleep, your brain prunes the connections between synapses that it deems unimportant, and it puts this coating called myelin on connections that it deems as important. And that myelin is like a coating, just like a electrical cable has coating on it. It speeds up and makes the signal move much quicker and much more efficiently. So the way you do it is you come up with a melody, you improvise it, or maybe you just, take a 5 minutes, but you just don't want to spend too much time on it, because remember, this is not the editing process. We're going to let the mind's forgetting and remembering functions do the editing for us. So you just come up with a little melody. Let me just improvise one real quick. Dee, 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 dee. Do 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 dee, do do dee, 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 woo. Okay, so whatever that was. What you do next, well, actually, let me give you a note. You want to avoid any of the fancy singing techniques. So like vibrato. Vibrato is like, ah. This is not a singing performance you're doing, so you can skip the vibrato. Any bends that you might normally do, you don't need those. Also melisma. Melisma is when you sing more than one note per syllable. So if I have Mary had a little lamb, right, however many syllables that is, I'll just take Mary. So melisma, instead of just going Mary, you would add a whole bunch of other notes. Mary. That's singing with melisma. So we don't want any of that, not yet. You can do that when you actually get the melody that you like and you're ready to add it with all those extra little tricks to kind of wring out the emotion out of the melody. What you want to do instead is just kind of have the melody be as simple as possible. And the trick of this is you're going to let the memory and the forgetting processes in your mind edit out what is not good in the melody. Because according to that saying, vividness is self-selecting, your brain is going to pick what in the melody is worth remembering. And that's what it will remember. Now, when I tried this, I've been doing this for a couple weeks now. When I tried this at first, I was finding that when I tried to remember it later, I had nothing. I had not even a fragment of it. Maybe that meant that those melodies were horrible. That could be. But I think it was more about just I'm getting old, or I don't know. Or just I didn't know the melody well enough. Whatever the reason was, who cares? The point is that I think that if you're having trouble remembering your melodies, you try this and you're just like, I don't remember any of it. I listened to it a few times. So I recorded my little melody and I listened to it back maybe 3 or 4 times during the day so that the melody was in my head. And then the next day, I tried to sing it back and I could remember parts of it. So the idea behind this is that you're going to sing this little melody and maybe you just listen to it a couple times just so you have something to latch on. So you're telling your brain that you do want to remember it, but that you don't want to listen to it too much because you don't want to memorize it. And then maybe the next day or 2 days later, you can experiment with this. There's no hard and fast rule. You're going to record yourself singing that melody back. And then you kind of do an A-B test. A being the original melody that you sang, that you came up with, and B being the one that you remembered. And you're going to ask yourself, well, which one do you like better? And I think most of the time you're going to like the B one better because your mind has only remembered the parts that are vivid, that have some kind of emotional resonancy to them, and it's going to forget all the stuff that was just kind of fluff and filler, the stuff that wasn't that great. And you can do this with an improvised melody, or you could write a melody, like actually spend some time trying to write a melody using those motif tools that we talked about in previous lessons. I'll put a link to those down below if you want to review what is a motif and how to use them in composition. So you could write with a whole slew of motifs and actually write in a melody. But then if you're spending that much time on it, you might want to spend more time away from it, because you want to give your brain enough time to forget the parts that aren't so great and remember the parts that are great. So I'm curious to find out how this works for you. Please put down in the comments once you've tried this out how it went for you, whether you found this useful or if it was a total waste of time. But I'm finding it pretty interesting as I'm kind of refocusing on starting with a melody for a song as opposed to starting with a lyric or starting with a chord progression. I think most songwriters come up with a little chord progression and they just kind of find notes that fit within it. But you know, the melody is the most important part of a song. And so if you don't have a really strong melody, one that's memorable, that's not a word, memorable, then the rest of, it doesn't matter. The song's not going to stick in people's minds. So starting with a melody is definitely worthwhile. Worthwhile, I said. It's worth the wildness, I guess. See, drainingness of work and teaching makes the mind go a little bit slower. Anywho, try this out. Let me know in the questions and comments down below how it went for you, and I'm excited to hear. I'll report back how it goes for me as well. All right, until next time, best of luck with your singing and melody making and your spiritual practice. Take care.
Oh, literally food for thought.
Yep. And the time away to allow your brain to forget stuff, that's important. Like just time away in general. Like for me, I've found also that sometimes with, guitar practice or keyboard practice or whatever, playing something for a little while, and if I get stuck on a part, or if it's, taking more time than usual to figure something out, if I take some time away, my brain has time to kind of digest it and work on it away from the keyboard. And then when I come back to it, all of a sudden it's easier than it was. And I don't remember why I was having trouble with it, because I kind of digested it, I guess, and got it figured out in the time away. So it's important to, if you're really struggling with something, to just kind of give it some time, step away, and then come back.
Well, and I like that he emphasizes it's not just about what you remember, it is also about what you forget and why. And his analogy of pruning, the way our brains work makes total sense. That when he was talking about making the melody and not getting complex with it, focusing on the basics of the melody and not trying to get into performance techniques and things. That's a good starting approach.
Definitely. Yeah. And that's a great, because again, a lot of times people do get too tied up in listening to the effects on the vocal because they like the way it sounds, this and that. And that's important for the end result, but not for when you're trying to just put it together in the first place.
Yeah, when you're trying to build it from the ground up, the tree doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It takes time.
Exactly. No, good stuff though.
It's no wonder his teachings on YouTube are so good. He plays a teacher by day, and he's like the Batman of songwriters at night.
To the Bat Cave.
Yes. At Muse Measure over on YouTube. Another channel tonight, we had great channels for songwriters. All you aspiring songwriters, composers, every one of these channels is a useful resource to improve on those skills.
Yep. And even something like you were talking about at one point, the chord packs were something that was useful, just, songwriting, and even just to get chords into your ears. If you don't have a lot of proficiency with an instrument, you can still, be able to get some music theory or even just some good practice in listening to chord progressions from some of those chord packs.
Yeah, and like I said, it's useful if you're not strong on the theory side and you don't know all your scales. Utilizing them helps you to learn the scales and which chords go with what, and sharps and flats and it's the sharps and the flat scales that I'm constantly having to go reference, whoa, how many sharps, how many flats.
Yep. And that's when you come back.
Having reference helps.
Oh, coming back to that circle of fifths is very handy too. If it's just somewhere in front of you there, you can tell at a glance, because where something is on that chart tells you, because top center is no sharps and flats. As you go down the right side, you're getting more sharps. As you go down the left side, it's more flats. And then at the bottom is where you've got 6 of each.
Yep. And some of these channels we looked at, they include great PDFs and resources to show you visually, what you need to know in these cases.
Yep. And even once you recognize that it's the same order of sharps and flats, so that when a song has one sharp in it, it's always going to be the F sharp. The key of G has got that F sharp in it. Now, the next song or the next key that's going to have 2 sharps is D, and it's going to have the sharps F sharp and C sharp. So it's going to always be F sharp and then C sharp. And they're going to add F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, and A sharp in that order every time. So you'd see that those are always going to be there. They go back and forth, that same order, and you can hear that's a common sounding progression. Like if you heard a chord progression that went like you hear it climbing, that's how that goes. But that's how you add those sharps. And if it was flats, it would be the other way, and you're adding the B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, and G flat, and that would sound the other way. And you see yourself walking down that way. But they're always added in that order.
Someone's been using those memory skills to memorize their scales.
Well, the other thing that tells me also is that when it comes to if a song only has a few flats, I know it's got the B flat because that's the first one. That's if a song has any flats, it's got that B flat. If it's got two or more flats, it's always got the B flat and the E flat. So it's good to like remember that those are going to be the ones you're going to be hitting the most. And then on the sharp side, it's the F sharp and the C sharp are the ones you're going to see in all of the chords or in all of the scales that have two or more. So it's good to remember those kinds of things.
I'm gonna have to start using your memory skills to because that's always what screws me up is like I never thought of it that way, like know the first sharp, then know the second sharp. I never thought of it that way, so that might help me to actually not have to go look afterwards to see which one's which.
And again, having the circle of fifths out in front of you helps as well, because where you see something on there immediately tells you, like the closer to the top it is, the less sharps or flats it has. The closer to the bottom, the more it has. And if it's on the left, it's got the flats. If it's on the right, it's got the sharps.
Yes, I need a giant poster.
Yeah, there's a lot of information on there too, because with each of the keys, with C, it'll have that A minor in there as well. So you'll see the relative minor for each of the major keys as well on the circle.
Oh, and now that I know that parallel chording technique, I want to see all major and minor and utilize them.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of good tools in the toolkit.
Yeah, I wish I had gotten a chance to look at these before my Saturday submission, because this was one that I wrote, chord approach.
Sure.
I didn't try to like play everything out. I started with I wanted this chord, I wanted this chord, I wanted this chord, and use the guitar strummer to play around with the chords.
Sure. Yeah, I love the arpeggiation and the strummers. They definitely sound very cool now.
Yeah, had I seen that parallel video before making this song, I might have wrote a totally different song.
Yeah. And one of those tools, like I always forget the name of the website, but there was the one where it was kind of saying, 80% of songs that go from C, then to F, then go to this chord. But like they had, even the very, very...
He mentioned it, hook theory.
Thank you. Yes, hook theory.
Yep.
Because that was one, I really liked that from the fact that you could really explore, you pick a couple of chords and it'll give you good suggestions on where to go from there based on theory that could be beyond the theory that you understand, but you can definitely hear what each of these different options sound like at just a real quick, it's a good songwriting tool from that standpoint.
Yeah. And what he also mentioned, they actually, they calculate like how many songs use these progressions and these, and that's useful information for those who want to write something different. Then
0.03% did this. Yeah.
Yeah. You need to see what different is.
Exactly. I like it.
That was a great covering of chords, and you are now Tonus.
I came back in. I changed my name.
I feel more like Glenn now.
My hair feels longer for some reason.
My brain feels bigger.
But that happens every Thursday, so you got to be careful. Although you got to keep the headphones to keep it in there.
Yes, I'm going to need bigger headphones if I'm going to be Glenn.
That's right. Big headphones to fill.
So tomorrow we're going to be taking a look a little more at the round 3 WAG solos, and Saturday we're going to be doing our reunion jam. The WAG's going to be finishing up, and we're going to be getting into some October fun. It's going to be Halloween soon, so I think we'll be looking at some spooky music.
Nice. You almost had some snow already, didn't you?
It's getting there, yeah.
Speaking of
started the
spooky music,
fire.
yeah, there you go, the stove. We had a gig. What was it, last weekend? I think it was. It was basically a Halloween themed show. So the whole set list was just all kinds of spooky songs and all that kind of stuff. So it's like I got a shot of the set list so I could look over it later.
Yeah, the Monster Mash better be in there, otherwise
Oh, yeah.
it's not complete.
Gotta have the Monster Mash. There's all kinds of good stuff in there. I mean, one that I expected to find in there, of course, was Spooky, which is one that I like a lot.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
All right. Well, we're going to get spooky and we'll see you next Thursday. Tune in tomorrow night. You'll see the complete round 3 submissions, the scores, and getting ready to show you round 4 next week.
Nice. Getting right to it. Can't wait to see you.
Yep, there's some great stuff in this one.
Mm-hmm. And until then, everybody keep learning, because you got to learn, share it with everybody.
Just do it. Shh. IT. Be quiet.
Yeah. See you guys next time.
Night, everyone.
We cover digital audio workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear, and MIDI too. How to arrange, compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat-making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much rap. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking We're talking